Hi, I'm Kat, and today I'm gonna do some book recommendations. So I've had the idea of doing seasonal book recommendations for a while, and I meant to film some fall recommendations some months ago, but things didn't work out, so now I'm combining fall and winter. All of the books that I'm going to talk about give me some sort of fall/winter vibes, and what I mean by that is they are moody in some way. They kind of give me a cozy feeling or the need to be wrapped up in a blanket and warm with a cup of tea, something like that. The type of book that you want to read in one sitting. Some of them have mystery elements to it, some of them are just moody, and you will understand what I mean when I talk about them specifically. But yeah, those are the vibes that I'm going for, so I hope you enjoy it. Let's start with one of my favorite books of all time. This is A Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, and I read this book for the first time in 9th grade, and I can safely say that it changed my life. The messages in it, the way it was written is just so stunning. To this day, it is still one of my favorite books ever, and it really gives me the vibes that I mentioned earlier. This is a story of Dorian Gray, a rich young man moving in high society and kind of discovering things. I can't really describe it, but I can safely say that it is very moody. There is kind of mysterious vibes throughout the whole book. There's a lot to be unpacked, a lot to be discovered when it comes to the plot, and it's just so fascinating. The writing itself is just to die for. It's stunning, and you just want to cozy up and see the story unfold. At least that's what I get from it every time I read it. Highly recommend that you pick this up, give this a read if you haven't already. Also, I will have to say that some of the books that I'm going to recommend today, I have read some time ago, some of them years and years ago, and are not as fresh in my mind when it comes to synopsis. So I apologize in advance if I am not the best at giving descriptions, but I hope at least I can give you some pointers as to what the story is about. Next up that I'm going to recommend is, I would say, a straight up mystery, although it is more than that because I am not a fan of mystery novels in general. They kind of bore me a little bit. This is more of a family drama while having mystery in it as well. So this is Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. There's a TV show adaptation, so if you've heard of that, this is the source material, and I really enjoyed this book. This book is set in a, I would say, 1970s kind of time era. I'm not sure exactly of the age, but it is set in a suburban area of Cleveland. And you see this very affluent family. You see them just the type of perfect American family, and there are new people coming into their lives that disrupt the situation. And the thing that grabs your attention right from the beginning is that you see them at present time in the very first chapter, and then you go back in time and you understand how we got to this situation in the first place. So it's that kind of narrative, and it's very intriguing. It was almost like having a chess game where there's little pieces everywhere and you kind of have to play with them all, and everybody came to play. So it was very, very interesting to see how things connected. It raises some very interesting and pertinent topics. So if you haven't read this already, or even if you have seen the TV show but you haven't read this, I highly encourage you to pick this up because it is really, really good, and Celeste Ng's writing, it is stunning. Next up, I'm going to recommend you one of my favorite books. This is Why We Broke Up by Daniel Handler and art by Mara Coleman? I'm not sure. So this is a novel, typical novel, but there are illustrations throughout. And this book tells the story of exactly how the title says, how this couple and why this couple broke up. So each illustration shows you a little trinket that has special meaning for this couple, and it documents how their relationship started and how it ended. And it's just so beautiful. This is a type of book that I have to say, it doesn't have the fall vibes in terms of mystery, but it does have them in terms of moodiness, because obviously having a couple break up, there's heartbreak and there's distress going around, and it's the type of book that if it is raining outside is just the perfect setting to break your heart. And this came out a very long time ago, but I love it so much. I've reread this I think 2 or 3 times, and I love it so much every single time. It's kind of a slice of life. It's very low stakes. It's just you see real world people having real world relationships and problems. Then we have another mysterious, kind of moody, but also kind of just beautiful book, and that is The Girl from the Other Side by Nagabe. And this is volume 1. This is a manga series that I am intending to continue. This is the first volume that I read, the only one I've read so far. And this is just stunning. Not to only give novel recommendations, so here we have manga. And once again, it's moody, it's kind of fairy tale-esque, so it's perfect for you to just cozy up and see this beautiful story unfold. And this tells the story of outside, where there is a curse, and inside, where people are protected. And there's this girl who isn't cursed, but is being taken care of by somebody who we think apparently is. And there's this whole mentorship and father-daughter dynamic. It's really sweet. It's very heartwarming. Then we have another classic, not a literary classic, but a YA and booktube classic, and that is Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. One of my favorite books, one of my favorite series, and one of my favorite writers, so I absolutely had to include it. And this is the first book in the Infernal Devices trilogy, and it is, from all of her books so far, this is the perfect one for this time of year. I absolutely love it, and I don't really, you know that feeling of because you love something so much, you don't really know how to describe it? That's me every single time. So if I love something very much, I don't know how to recommend it other than saying I love it very much. Case in point, this tells the story of Tessa, who is coming from America to London, 1878, I think it's the time. Let me not be wrong about that. Yes, I am right, 1878. This is set in London, and she is coming into a new world without realizing it. So this is fantasy, paranormal fantasy. We have the world of shadow hunters, and the great thing about this is that you get introduced to it as Tessa is being introduced to it. So if you're maybe apprehensive when it comes to fantasy novels, this kind of takes you by the hand and guides you through it. There's demons, there's shadow hunters who fight demons, there's magic, and it's just such a beautiful story, and I can guarantee that if you pick this up, you will want to continue on with this trilogy because it's just that good. This next book, it's more of a wild card only because I read it so long ago that I don't really remember it like how I would like to remember it, and that is When We Were Alive by C.J. Fisher. I remember really enjoying it. This is kind of a mystery, but once again, not a mystery in the typical sense, but this is kind of a family story, and we have 3 main characters, and as the story progresses, You see how all of their stories are connected, and I remember really being surprised at the end. If you want to read something that probably you haven't seen before and probably you haven't heard of before, I would give this one a read because it was really, really great. Once again, from what I remember. Just to steal the synopsis a little bit, we have Bobby, we have William, and we have Miles. Those are 3 main characters. And then it says 3 different people from 3 different times each explore the dark side of relationships, search for beauty in sadness, and try to bear the burden of guilt from living in a world we are powerless to fix. So very much that moody, kind of mysterious vibes that for some reason I always associate with fall. The next book that I'm going to recommend is I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver, and this book tells the story of a non-binary teen. I read this, I think, last year, and I remember really, really enjoying it. Obviously, this is a very important story, its own voices. Here we see the teen in question, Ben, and everything they have to go through to kind of come into who they are and explain that to the world as well at their own pace. This has more of a school setting, so maybe that's also why it gives me kind of fall vibes, because fall for some reason always has some school association to it in my head. But yeah, highly encourage you to pick this up, give this a read. It was really, really beautiful. Then we have kind of a wild card, and I recommend this even though it wasn't my favorite, but I've heard so many people rave about this that I think this could be to your taste possibly, even though it wasn't a favorite for me. But this is Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. This is a collection of very particular and peculiar short stories. Each story has a very different way of telling the story. It's not very linear narratives. Each story has its own twist and its own way of being. My favorite out of this collection is the first one. I really appreciated that. It talks a lot about womanhood, and in the back it says that the author demolishes the borders between magical realism, science fiction, comedy, horror, fantasy, and fabulism. So there's a lot of different elements at play. This was very well written. It's just the content was not my favorite, but the writing was very beautiful, and I would love to read one day a full novel from this author because I can really imagine enjoying that format more than short stories. So I highly encourage you to pick this up if you enjoy short stories. Now we only have 2 more books left, and let's go with Under the Skin by Michelle Faber. Once again, this is a book that I read many moons ago, but I still remember parts of it to this day. I remember really enjoying the writing style. For something that is so out of my comfort zone, I was very intrigued. Our main character is a traveler. She is always driving around and kind of giving rides to hitchhikers. And as the story progresses, you see her doing some questionable things that you don't really understand. And you don't really understand for a lot of the novel. You're kind of going along for the ride and kind of picking things up as the author gives them to you. If you enjoy the type of books that kind of not mess with your head, because that's not really that, but that kind of keep you at the edge of your seat, constantly asking, where is this going? What the hell is happening? This is definitely the book for you. Once again, there is mystery, though the mystery isn't the main focus. It's very much a character-based and character-focused book. This really fit the vibe. There's a lot of raining, there's a lot of moodiness, a lot of mystery once again. So highly encourage you to pick this up if those are things that interest you. And finally, we get to the last book that I'm going to recommend today, and that is The Starlight C by Erin Morgenstern. I will talk about this more when I do my monthly wrap-up, but this book, I finished it last week, and every single day I've caught myself thinking about it. And that happens very rarely. So when it does, it's really special. And this book is just, it took over my life. This is kind of a fairy tale-esque novel that talks all about the love of books. It has some fantastical elements. There's this world to uncover. We follow our main character, who is Zachary Ezra Rawlings, and he lives a very normal life. He's in college, and he stumbles upon a book one day. And the book, for some reason, tells a bit of his life story. This book was written years and years ago, so the fact that he sees himself written in a book way before he was born naturally intrigues him. So that's how this book starts. Him going on this adventure to figure out where this book has come from. This is just the book that you want to read, cozying up with a cup of tea and just reading the whole night and the whole afternoon away, because it's just that good. You finish a chapter and you immediately want to know what happens next. And the great thing about this is that you see from various perspectives, and not POVs per se, but you have different stories being told at the same time, you could say. And that rhythm kind of makes you want to read on. The writing is everything. I love it so much. I finished this, like I said, last week, and I absolutely have to recommend this because it was that incredible. Perfect for this time of year, perfect for every time of year, but because of that mystery element, that moodiness, that fantastical world, I think fall and winter is perfect for that. And yeah, I can't recommend this enough. Please read it. It's beautiful. And yeah, those are all my fall/winter recommendations. If you've read any of the books that I mentioned, please let me know your thoughts. If you're planning to read any of the books that I mentioned, also let me know. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye!